The ability to have thoughts and not act on them is what separates man from beast. I'm going to get back to that very poetic quote here in a moment, but first, let me introduce you to the beast that is joining me today, and that is Dr. Buster.
Here I am.
Buster, what holiday is coming up at the end of November?
Damn it.
It's not St. Patrick's Day. It's not the 4th of July.
I think it's Flag Day, right? Yeah.
Yes, and on Flag Day, what do you do?
That's a great question. You know, like we have a legitimate Flag Day.
No, I actually
What
don't
the hell
give
is
a
that
fuck.
holiday for?
There was a rhetorical question. I don't need you to actually answer it.
Well, do we even need Flag Day? What's the point?
On the Flag Day in my household, we celebrate with a big, huge dinner where the family gets around a table and tells what they're thankful for, right?
Do you actually do that?
No.
Well, we do on Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thanksgiving. That's also at the end of November. Okay. So Thanksgiving's coming up here. Happy Thanksgiving to our American listeners. And
I think
thinking
you
about
mean Indigenous Peoples Day, you fucking...
No,
God.
that is in October. That is the preferred name for what was once known as Columbus Day. Indigenous Peoples Day, you fucking idiot.
I still think there's an alternative word to Thanksgiving now. Maybe people just don't celebrate it if they are offended by the origins.
Okay. Well, look, can I just fucking tell you what this topic is? It's Thanksgiving, whether you celebrate it or not. The idea is that you are thankful for shit, right? And I know you've never been thankful or grateful to anyone or anything in your life.
I just wish someone would be thankful that I existed, even just once.
I'm still waiting for a thank you for letting you come on and sabotage this show for a few years now.
Well, that wouldn't be the only thing you'd have to thank me for coming on. Come on. That was good.
It was all right. With Thanksgiving coming up, it led me to wonder, what are we thankful for? What do we most take for granted in life? What do humans take for granted? And when I was doing research on something in that realm, that led me to another list, which is, what are the things humans take for granted that also separates us from the animals? And I'm not talking about your bulbous udders, Buster. What is something else in your everyday life that you think you probably take for granted?
Air conditioning and heating, climate-controlled interior environments.
Okay, and the very idea that humans were able to come up with a system by which to cool and heat spaces, that is something an animal could never do, right? An animal can be inside of a climate-controlled room, but an animal could not create the climate-controlled room. That is a uniquely human possibility in this world.
Except for some animals who... Now, this is by far not the majority, but some animals have extraordinary capacities to regulate their own body temperature as needed.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that regulating body temperature and cooling or heating a physical space inside of a building were the same thing.
Well, if the animal is inside of a space, then that is a physical...
You just can't let me have anything, can you? You gotta push back on every little thing.
Like I said, I'm an advocate for the listeners out there.
You're a ask-of-it.
Who think that Nick needs correcting every now and again.
Well, don't I know it with all the fucking emails I get about mispronouncing words. But let me tell you, let's revisit the quote from the beginning of this episode. The quote was, "The ability to have thoughts and not act on them is what separates man from beast." And that's what you're going to be talking about today. What separates man from beast? These are the top 10 things that humans take for granted that separates us from the animals. And that quote is a very big hint. The ability to have thoughts and not act on them. Okay? Now, real quick, before we get too far, I have a quick ask for our Spotify listeners. If you're listening to me on Spotify, lift your phone to your face, look at it, and on the screen on Spotify, you'll see this episode. If you scroll down just slightly, take your finger and flick it down, just one little flick, you'll see two things. You'll see a place to leave a comment, and below that, you'll see a poll. Do me a favor, take 10 seconds right now and drop a comment that describes something you think humans take for granted. We'll see if your response is on today's list. And then after that, take another 2 seconds and go and answer the poll right below that. That's on Spotify. Thank you. Now, Dr. Buster, you fucking beast, I want to talk to you about what separates us from the beasts. People have an innate tendency to take some of their abilities for granted. Oftentimes, we overlook the remarkable things that are ingrained within our daily lives. This list will cover 10 such attributes which are deemed the most conspicuous traits that distinguish us from most brute animals. Buster, you and other longtime listeners know that 9 times out of 10, our lists on this show are based on objective data and information. But every once in a while, we throw in a list based on someone else's opinion. That is the case here, and that's because I think this list is strongly presented. It was fact-checked. And while we can debate over the order of the ranking, I think the list is pretty undeniable for 10 things that we most take for granted. The list comes from an author known only as LN Fusion on the website Listverse, and I've also pulled some supplemental stats from Wikipedia and a few other places that I'll mention as I get to them.
What is
What do you
this
think,
head
Buster?
honcho's credentials that allows them, that gives them the right to put this list together?
Well, they are a human.
Okay, I've met plenty of parents that I would never take advice on the top 10 parenting, best top 10 parenting tips and tricks from them. Just because you are of a group doesn't mean you know how to be a
Buster,
good model version of that group.
what is the number one tips or tricks for new parents, in your opinion?
I'm not one to be giving parenting advice.
Give us one. Give us one of the top 10.
Have them sign up at tennispod.com/plus.
Okay, yep. And you'll get a free 7-day trial to TennisPod to ad-free early episodes and bonus content. What a great plug, Buster. Thank you. Okay, let's do it. Let's do the top 10. We got a lot to talk about, so I'm going to turn you loose. Actually, what is something you think is not on the list? What is something we don't take for granted that separates us from the animals?
Show me being able to poop.
You're right, because animals are very good at that.
Show me humping things out of control. Like whether you want to or not, you just can't help it. Like our cat Cosmo, who we come in and find that we have this navy blue like Sherpa sheep blanket that we come in and he's like humping it, and it's annoying, and we're like, hey, stop it.
But that's what separates us from the beast.
No.
The quote, I'll go back to it.
I've met plenty of humans who just can't help themselves.
Well, the humans that can help themselves, the ability to have thoughts and not act on them. There's plenty of times you and I want to viciously hump things out in the wild, but we have the self-control to not act on our impulses.
I don't know. I think humping things is not going to make the list because I don't think. Well, is it? The self-control not to act on your sexual urges, is that on the top 10? Sexual restraint, one could say.
That's not in the top 10, no. But that is and maybe it's not on the list because we find that there are some humans that aren't capable of restraining themselves, and they end up in prison or serial killing.
I think there's quite a few of them.
Yeah. So, what is something that we take for granted that is so ingrained in our daily living that we don't even think about it, but it is completely unique to humans? You can't say like clean water.
Yeah.
Because
am I too basic in saying like using tools? Because some other animals use tools.
It's not that, but you're close. You're in the right arena. What do you use to use tools? Like what part of
hands?
your...
But are we the only ones with opposable thumbs? I thought.
No.
Okay.
Think. I'm not trying to get you to say opposable thumbs. Like there's a certain skill set that humans have.
Building something, manufacturing.
How about fine motor skills?
Okay. Right, like using a pencil or a pen or scissors.
Yes.
No other animal could do that.
Exactly. What number do you think fine motor skills is in the top 10?
And how are they ranked? So is number 1 the most impressive thing?
Number 1 is the thing we most take for granted that is unique to humans.
Okay. Show me number 7.
No, it's number 9. Nothing very fine about your guess at the placement of fine motor skills. And we're not talking about your ability to drive a motorcycle. We're talking about of small muscles and movement with the eyes, hands, and fingers. It's also known as dexterity. Did you know, Buster, You are a parent of a young child with another one on the way soon.
Allegedly.
What age does hand-eye coordination begin to develop?
Well, I think that varies for every child.
Well, of course it does, but what's the fucking average, asshole? God. You're being impossible today.
For gross motor skill or fine?
Fine.
18 months.
It begins to develop at 2 to 5 months. Infants begin to reach for and grasp objects at this age. A broken hand would make everything from typing on the keyboard to making a sandwich more difficult to do, jerking off as well. We must therefore remember to pay homage, or at least be thankful for, the anatomical makeup of our arms. To start, we should become aware of the importance of our opposable thumbs, which humans do share that with other primates, but our hands also have the ability to perform fine and precise tasks, such as gripping a pencil or typing on a keyboard. Imagine a world devoid of pencils and keyboards, or worse, a world abundant with pencils and keyboards, but humans unable to use them.
Okay.
You seem like you don't like this one. You got a problem with fine motor skills?
No, I don't have a problem with it.
But it's because you take it for granted. You never thought about it, really.
As a psychologist, I've thought about it a fair amount.
Oh, fucking here we go. Did
I used to
everyone know
teach-
Dr. Buster is a doctor of psychology? I'm not sure if he's mentioned that before.
I used to teach developmental psychology. We talked about these types of steps a lot.
Well, then there's several things on this list that a psychologist should have no problem guessing.
Yeah, but we've already established in the past that even though my forte might be psychology, list guessing is certainly not my forte.
Well, you can fucking say that again. Where do I subscribe to that?
Subscribe.
Cosine.
Is it too basic to say like bowel control? You know, the ability to hold having to go to the bathroom for a while because you need to. I mean,
Maybe that should be on here. But
other
there are
animals
animals can do that.
Yeah,
Animals can do that.
I guess dogs and kitties can hold it till they need to. But I feel like birds just essentially
depends
aren't
on the
aware
animal.
if they're shitting.
No. Or think about like fucking rhino doesn't give a shit if it's shitting. You know?
Yeah.
It's just gonna shit wherever it is.
There could be a rhino right behind it trying to get a drink of water after a week in the desert, hasn't had any nutrition, no water, and it just takes a big old fat shit right in front of its comrade who's trying to drink some fresh river water.
And guess what? That comrade also doesn't give a shit. None of them are giving a shit about anything. That's the thing.
Okay. I don't think it's gonna be number one, but show me language.
Language is for sure on here, and if it's not number one, then what number is it, Mr. Psychologist Doctor?
3.
I could see an argument for this being higher.
Absolutely, but I'll hold my comments and we'll wait and see what's at the top of the list.
The origin of written language is also a topic of heated debate. However, most people agree that its earliest roots stem from ancient cave drawings, as they are man's first attempt toward making a visual record of ideas.
Wow,
And much
so
like-
interesting.
Is that sarcasm?
Nope.
What? You don't think it's interesting that the idea of language stems from the very beginning of humanity?
No,
That's
it is.
interesting.
It is. It's super interesting.
Guys,
I'm just fucking with you.
listen, if it wasn't interesting, I wouldn't have a podcast. It's random tidbits like this. It's the whole point.
It is wild that like, the steps of evolution for us to eventually slip right into being human beings. That whole
Well, we didn't
time,
slip right into it, but
there was never a time where there was some form of written down communication, and then one day suddenly there was.
some caveman took his shit and started rubbing it on the wall of the cave, and then that evolved into, hey, we can actually put something on this wall that someone else can see, and then they understand something, you know?
Yeah. I wonder, if it started with like making lines in the dirt to communicate something. Yeah, I would love to see a summary of how that got going.
And we truly take language for granted, because think about all the complexities of language. There's hundreds of languages just today, not to mention all the languages that have gone extinct. And they all have different dialects, and for the most part, independently, they originated from each other over time. And we take it for such granted that there was a time when words and letters were not a thing. Like that
Mhm.
all developed over time and was was transferred into a collection of agreed upon words, phrases, and letters that could then be taken to where we are today. And it's also amazing to think before computers, every single written thing that's ever existed had to be physically captured on something.
Right. And stored somewhere.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, to go back to a few minutes ago when you were making fun of me for thinking this is interesting, it is interesting.
Hey, I didn't disagree.
Much like many other things in the world, language has taken countless steps to evolve from rudimentary grunts and cave drawings of antiquity into its present form. Buster, when's the last rudimentary grunt you gave?
When was the last time my wife and I...
All right, we're done.
Okay.
Humans have devised thousands of spoken and written languages, which are still currently in use today. And for more on language, including a brief history of language, listen to the recent Tiny Tennis episode where I discussed the top 10 most challenging languages for a native English speaker to learn.
Yeah. And alphabets are crazy. You know, we're teaching our daughter all the 26 letters of the English alphabet these days. And there didn't have to be 26. There could have been 24, 28. How do people decide the distinct differences and to create an alphabet? Dude, that is wild.
Well, and it's wild. I kind of hinted at it a minute ago, but to come to consensus, like who's deciding? Like, okay, 26 is it. We're not adding
Sure.
any more. And like at some point over time, and I know it's like this evolutionary thing. It's not like people sat in a room and decided it, but like it's kind of how it feels sometimes, right? It's like I
And
don't
then a
know.
war breaks out. You've got like the 28 coalition, the 28 letter group, and you've got the 26 letter group, and they go to war for 1,000 years. And turns out the 26 letter group, they win. And that's how the alphabet was established.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. Well, similar to language is. Well, I think you might need help guessing number 8. Trying to think of how to tell you this. Well, yeah, and by writing, you might stumble upon other human inventions that have shaped
Books.
No, I mean, books would fall under language, I think, but there's something that humans use to. I'm just going to tell you. Mathematics. Mathematics. Right? You wouldn't probably, if I had given you 50 guesses in a row, I don't know if you would have said mathematics, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, as a former math teacher, we talked a lot about how math is, in many ways, its own language.
So you're a psychologist, a doctor, and now a math teacher. Buster, is there anything you can't do?
Be good at guessing tennis lists, and we've established that.
All right. Well, mathematics, we take it for granted because have you ever stopped to gape at the jaw-dropping majesty of some of humanity's products of ingenuity?
I stopped to gape more than once.
Can confirm. From the Great Pyramids and the Eiffel Tower to the nuts and bolts holding your chair in place, people have utilized their understanding of mathematics since the dawn of civilization itself. Modern studies of animal cognition have shown that these concepts are not unique to humans. Such concepts would have been part of everyday life in hunter-gatherer societies. The idea of the number concept evolving gradually over time is supported by the existence of languages. Duh, Buster.
Yep.
Beginning in Renaissance Italy in the 15th century, new mathematical developments were made at an increasing pace that continues through the present day, including the groundbreaking work of Isaac Newton and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. Listeners of the show, math has ever been used as a tool for seemingly profound feats, such as calculating the escape velocity of our planet in hopes of one day overcoming it. Other than its vital application to engineering and rocket science, we also made use of it in a more mundane, everyday fashion. Whenever we are counting the change we've received from the store or anticipating our delayed arrival back from work, we are using mathematics. Now look, mathematics is important. I don't know if it's in the top 10 for me. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'd have to see the rest of the list, but I can see mathematics fitting into a better umbrella category. Seems oddly specific.
Okay. Well, what else you got? By the way, side note, but like Isaac Newton was what, 1600s, I believe? Or was he earlier?
I don't know. Yeah, history is not my strong suit.
Let's see. Isaac Newton. He invented calculus and a bunch of other shit. Yeah, he was in the 1600s to early 1700s. I mean, I know I harp on this sometimes, but let's really put yourself in the 1600s, Buster. There's people shitting in the street.
For
You
sure.
don't have clean water. There's
Mm-mm.
no internet, obviously. There's no electricity. I think the printing press has barely been invented, if it has been invented yet. So, like, just owning a book, period, was a
Yeah.
rare thing. And this guy is inventing calculus?
Right. Yeah.
And I think he
Well,
did shit with gravity, and it's like,
to be fair, he wasn't one of the peasants out there who had to own a farm or produce food or do manual labor. Sir
that's
Isaac Newton
true.
probably had a whole crew of people working for him. He probably was wealthy and well off, and he had that disposable free time to push the boundaries of, man's intellectual frontier. That doesn't make it any less impressive, but yeah, most people, the idea of a paid time off or a vacation, that wasn't happening in the 60s.
I mean, you're right. Sir Isaac Newton, I believe, I mean, I don't know his whole history, but I think he was a wealthy guy when he invented this stuff. But still, like, look around you. What is your inspiration, for I just don't even know how you even like start to think like, okay, I'm not just going to worry about surviving or buying nice things or traveling. I'm going to
Sure.
whatever. It's just wild to me. It's just wild to me that anything was ever accomplished in human history prior to like the year 1925.
I think even later than that. Because, I mean, for most of human history, I even think about wars and conquering, and borders of countries are ebbing and flowing every year, and every king's trying to overtake that king, and people are just murdering each other. And good luck with some sort of legal recourse for any crime that ever occurs. I mean, even if you live in a fucking city, I mean, it's just chaos. And
Yeah.
yeah, the fact that you could get any thinking done, even if you were a wealthy individual, and someone wouldn't just like bust in your castle and murder your ass, is really impressive.
Or just the fact that you didn't die from getting sick from all the disease just everywhere in the street. Like there was no cleanliness. And just
Yep.
anything pre-electricity is pretty impressive to me. And speaking of electricity, do you think something like that might be on the list?
I'm
Buster?
charged up, baby. I'm ready to go. I'm electrified by
Where
that
would
hint.
electric power be in the top 10?
We gonna go on to Electric Avenue. Show me number
Folks,
5.
I want to apologize. I understand if you need to unsubscribe at this point.
5.
I want to thank you for your years of loyalty to the Tennis Podcast, and I'm sorry I had to come to this, where Dr. Buster's incessant, poor singing and list guessing had to drive you away from something you loved. I apologize. I understand. I wish it didn't have to happen, but I get it.
You're welcome. Not every sidekick host is willing to break into song and dance at a moment's notice.
I meant to say this earlier, but Isaac Newton, instead of spending his time on fucking boring ass calculus, who likes calculus? Like, really, thanks, Isaac. Yeah, great. Really great.
Stephen
Love
Clark?
doing that. Stephen Clark legit
He likes
does.
calculus.
Let's not talk about his fucking ass. But most of us fucking hate calculus. Why couldn't he be thinking about, like, imagine if all that time and energy he had spent was instead used on something useful, like, I don't know, conforming all of the world's water supply to peanut butter? Like, don't you think that would have been a better use of time? And today, we would have had hundreds of years of peanut butter water society to, well, see, if all water was replaced by creamy peanut butter, and it was done overnight, like in the 1600s in Isaac Newton's time, it would be really hard for humans to adjust from that point forward.
They would die.
Right?
Yes.
The peanut butter as water scenario really only works if it had always been that way, right?
Correct.
If water, would you stop with your condescending?
No, I'm
if
right here
peanut
with
butter-
you.
If water was always peanut butter from the very beginning, then we would have evolved with the
Well,
peanut
it
butter.
wouldn't have ever been anything else. So to even imagine water would be strange.
To imagine peanut butter.
Yeah.
When you're thinking of water, you'd be thinking of peanut butter. But
When we'd fire up the toaster oven and put our toast in, and it pops out, we'd be putting water on it.
oh, because you're saying that today people
Right.
eat toast with peanut butter.
It'd be a water and jelly sandwich.
Really? Right. Because we've never explored that. So this peanut butter is water thing's come up a lot over the years on Tennis Podcast, but we've never really discussed if water replaced peanut butter. Right? Now water is this kind of treat in the same way peanut butter is. You make your Reese's water cups instead of Reese's peanut butter cups.
People say, no, I won't have water tonight. I've been trying to watch what I'm eating.
I'm watching my figure. Okay, all right. This has legs to it. We got to come back to this. But we were starting to get into electric power, which you said stupidly was number 5. And that was really stupid because it was number 3.
Knew it.
Why we take it for granted. Did you wake up to the sound of an alarm clock this morning? If you have, then chances are you've made use of electricity. The presence of electricity has been around for far longer than humans have roamed the Earth. In fact, the properties of electricity predate the Earth itself, going back to the inception of the universe. However, it is the ability to harness electricity for our own benefit that is truly remarkable. Buster, who, it's often said he invented or discovered electricity. Neither of those phrases are really true. But who do most people attribute electricity to?
I think his name is Justin Bieber. Right?
Benjamin Franklin. The Justin Bieber of his day, no doubt. But a little bit before him, electricity would remain a little more than an intellectual curiosity. Did that tickle you?
Oh. You gonna tickle me or what? Get over here.
No, I just you were being so cute there. I just had to let it die its own natural death. Electricity would remain little more than an intellectual curiosity for millennia until the year 1600, when an English scientist, William Gilbert, wrote some fucking book, who knows. But in the 18th century, Benjamin Franklin conducted extensive research into electricity. In fact, he sold his possessions to fund his work. So, by possessions, they meant, fucking rock over there, some wool pants maybe, and
here's a stick he stepped on when he was an 8-year-old on a trip with his grandpa, and it's just such a happy memory and one of his only toys that he ever had as a kid growing up. So there's his broken stick.
I don't think people had furniture or homes or clothes really until at least the 1900s. So I don't know what he was selling, but he sold that shit to fund his work into electricity research. And in 1752, he is reputed to have attached a metal key to the bottom of a dampened butt.
Whose butt was it? And did he have to do the dampening, or was the butt already damp? Because I've known a few people with some naturally damp booties.
I think your butt, after all the booty clapping, you work up a sweat.
I could harness electricity.
I laugh because, I was supposed to, the way I wrote it, I was supposed to just say butt and keep going like it was a natural part of the sentence instead of kite. But I ruined it by laughing immediately at my own joke. So,
which
really,
you do. Yep.
He attached the metal key to a dampened kite string and flew that kite in a storm-threatened sky. A succession of sparks jumping from the key to the back of his hand showed that lightning was indeed electrical in nature. And while the early 19th century had seen rapid progress in electrical science, the late 19th century would see the greatest progress in electrical engineering through people like Alexander Graham Bell, Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, George Westinghouse, and many others. Electricity turned from a scientific curiosity into an essential tool for modern life. Buster, in the year 2022, the United States of America, God bless America.
God bless America.
We consumed over 4 trillion kilowatt hours of electricity, which was the highest amount ever recorded and 14 times more than the amount of electricity in the year 1950. And the U.S. Energy Information and Administration projects that electricity consumption will continue to increase, reaching record highs in 2024 and 2025, with no end in sight.
Yeah, bub, it's a problem. It's a major problem.
It's a major, major problem. But hey, I've suggested it on the Tennis Podcast is all about suggesting scientific alternatives. Peanut butter is water, as one example, but now instead of solar-powered electricity or hydro, we just first find a cloning mechanism by way to clone humans, and then clone Dr. Buster a bunch of times so that we can have a ring of Dr. Buster's booty clapping around the world, generating power. It's either that or
I don't hate it.
we find a growing machine, like in Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, and then we expand your ass greatly, the size of
Sure.
one buster ass,
Uh
and
huh.
that alone could clap
Yeah,
at
and just
power.
start clap, and then you got to hook up the whole grid to generate from the ass, and it's a distribution network.
Do you think? Do you think you get tired though? I think we would need more than one Doctor Buster.
Yes, so that's the problem. Is like Texas when they had that power outage in the ice a couple years ago. Part of that was because their system was too dependent on a few central locations. So we're
Mhm.
gonna need a lot of different booty clap and bodacious booties that are capable
Yeah.
of sustaining such great electrical output. Because if one of us goes down and we're tired, or
One of us goes down.
it's
Like it's
like
a power line going
you
down.
got to have backups. You got to have redundancies in the system so that things can be switched and transferred as
You got to
needed.
actually have more Dr. Buster booties than you think you might need to have, just to have a
Correct.
surplus.
And then they've got to be wired up where if one goes down, your whole city is already connected to a substitute butt that's still clapping away.
And if one booty goes down, do you think that Dr. Buster is like dead? He's booty clapped into exhaustion, into the point of death? Or is
Well,
he
he's
like,
probably he's gonna have to sleep, right?
well,
Unless this
that's
is like a
true.
robot that's
Oh, we
booty
could,
clapping.
like, right. The Dr. Buster could be sleeping and there's a machine physically clapping the booty on his behalf
Yeah, but
while
see,
he's
if we're
sleeping.
gonna do that, then in a humanitarian effort to free up our lives, wouldn't the Dr. Buster just go about with his life and the robot would be forced to stay there 24/7? Just like we're talking about job replacement now with AI and
But you
automation
still
and what
need the meaty butt cheeks of the Dr. Buster booty
get
to
the
be.
prosthetic booty cheeks
No, you can't.
placed
You
on
got to
the
have the real
robot.
thing. It's like
Mm.
trying to make meat in a lab. You got to have the real thing.
I'm all aboard synthetic meat. Let's go. I'm all
Yeah.
about it. And I'm not even being sarcastic about that.
Well, I actually am for that too. But I think for a Dr. Buster booty clap, you need an authentic, natural, organic Dr. Buster booty.
It just wouldn't be as satisfying because not
Right.
only do you have enough power to watch Netflix and cook dinner for your family, but you can also throw the window open on a quiet, calm day and you can listen real hard and you can hear that authentic smacking away outside your local neighborhood.
The other thing is, if you're wearing makeup and you need to go, and you need, most people that wear makeup, they take their makeup off at night to go to sleep, right? Well, let's say the peanut butter water it gums up the works, your faucet doesn't work. Just go out there and find yourself one of those Dr. Buster booties, stick your face right in the booty, and the clapping of the booty will start to bring,
I think
start
we
to
have just
clean.
about I think we have just about 0 listeners left at this point. We should probably scrap most of that.
Where did the line cross? Was it when it said get your face cleaned?
I think it's when you brought back the peanut butter as water, and then
That's where we jumped the shark there. Okay.
because I
All right,
think a
take it
lot of
back.
listeners they're still trying to figure out what the hell Nick meant by replacing water with peanut butter.
I think there's real potential here. Also, there's potential in the latest edition of the Bookbuster, which was released last week. The Bookbuster is a short 10-minute monthly podcast where Dr. Buster reviews and recommends a new book. Buster, tell them about the latest episode.
So it's a book called Look Again, which is a short and sweet read written by 2 psychology professors. And the book recaps the phenomenon of habituation, when you get used to something, and how unfortunately, which is right on cue with this episode,
Yeah.
it can cause you to start taking things for granted in your life that really mean something to you. And if you can force yourself out of a habituation routine, you can bring a sparkle back to the things in your life that you know you love, but maybe you don't show enough appreciation to.
And you want that sparkle, folks, trust me. So if you want to listen to that episode of the Bookbuster and all episodes of the Bookbuster and exclusive bonus content you can't get anywhere else and early access to new episodes and everything 100% ad-free, if you want all that and more, just go to tennispod.com/plus. You get a free 7-day trial. You can also sign up in one tap at the top of our page on Apple Podcasts. I hope you'll check it out. And thank you for your support. Now, Buster, we got to get back to this list. So far you have number 9, fine motor skills, 8, mathematics, 7, language. You're missing 6, 5, and 4. 3 is power. You're missing 2 and 1. So what else you got?
What about transportation? Automobile, flight, roads, something like that.
I like where you're going. Let's think more basic. A more basic form of transportation. What is the most basic form of transportation for humans?
Walking?
Walking. Bipedalism.
Oh, okay.
The ability to walk on 2 feet, 2 legs,
Sure.
is uniquely human. Now, there are other animals that occasionally walk on 2 legs, but humans do it as our default. And that might seem out of place compared to power and language, but when I explain it, I think you'll agree it belongs on this list. So where do you think it ranks, though?
5.
10. Number 10 is bipedalism. Our ability to learn how to walk exclusively on 2 legs, regardless of age, is an astonishing feat. The very act of walking has allowed us to free up the use of our arms and in turn permit us to wield a wide array of tools. Bipedalism not only liberates our arms, but the remainder of our bodies as well. Instead of having our heads positioned parallel to the ground like our quadrupedal relatives, humans have eyes perpendicular to the world below and thus possess a broadened view of the world around us. Imagine if humans walked on all fours. Our perception of everything would change.
Well, and everything gets far less convenient and less intuitive for holding things, carrying things, and working with tools.
Now, as you well know, Dr. Buster, among the dinosaurs, there were exclusively bipedal animals. The birds are also members of bipedal dinosaurs, the theropods. But there are at least 12 distinct hypotheses as to how and why bipedalism evolved in humans, and also some debate as to when. Bipedalism evolved well before the large human brain or the development of stone tools. Recent studies have suggested that it could go back as early as 7 million years. Walking on 2 legs also consumes far less energy than walking on all fours, or even knuckle dragging, for that matter. So there's all these little things about it that you don't ever think about, thus you take it for granted, the theme of this list, that really make it important. As a result, our minds are less occupied with the need of a constant meal, because we're using less energy, and are instead left to wander and think about things other than food. It's also been proposed that, like some modern-day apes, early hominids had undergone a knuckle walking stage before adapting the back limbs for bipedal walking, and now our forearms could grasp things. Numerous causes for the evolution of human bipedalism involve freeing the hands for carrying and using tools, changes in climate and environment that favored a more elevated eye position, and to reduce the amount of skin exposed to the tropical sun. There's a lot of theories as to why this happened. Probably no one thing is responsible, but it really frees up the rest of our body and our minds to be better used elsewhere.
And then those advantages just cause more creatures to try to be bipedal and leads to humans picking up that trait because the humanoid creatures who happen to live better and more frequently and have kids more so than the ones that were still knuckle dragging and walking around on all fours.
So do you agree that bipedalism belongs in the top 10? I think 10 is the right placement on the list.
Sure.
But think about it. Imagine Ben Franklin doing the kite experiment to discover electricity while walking on all fucking fours.
Right. Well, it's much harder because there's nothing to hold on to the
He
kite.
probably never would have done it to begin with.
Yeah.
It really is kind of the foundation that led to everything else.
Yeah, I put respect on it.
Yeah. So that was number 10. What else you got?
Anything like self-awareness, consciousness, something in that vein?
Not that, but something in that vein, yeah. What
Like
else?
Emotional awareness.
Close.
It's not going to just be raw intelligence, right? There's going to be something.
No, all humans have the ability to store things in their minds.
Memory, long-term memory?
Memory is on here. What number?
Oh,
let's see if you get your first correct number.
That's
of
important.
The day.
I mean, I don't know the rest of the items on this list, but this is crucial, so I'm going to guess number 2.
Everyone, stop what you're doing. This is an important moment. Dr. Buster finally guessed one right.
Like I always do.
Number 2 is memory. What day is it today? What did I have for breakfast this morning? Most of you will not struggle to remember the answers to these questions. That's because you successfully draw upon past occurrences from your memory banks. Memory is still seen as somewhat of an enigma and is thus not yet fully understood, but the capabilities of human memory are as diverse as they are complex. Short-term memory, not to be confused with working memory, allows recall for a period of several seconds to a minute without rehearsal. Its capacity, however, is very limited. While the total capacity of long-term memory has yet to be established, it can store much larger quantities of information. Memory is super important, and is there anything we take more for granted than our memory? Until your memory starts going in your old age or you start developing dementia or something like that, until that starts happening, you completely take your memory for granted. You don't even think about it. I'll remember what you said in that conversation. Don't worry about it. I don't need to write it down. I'll remember it. Or I'll remember my password for this app. Or I'll remember to take the trash out. Or I remember that funny conversation we had that we still talk about years later. Like, all these things are inconsequential mostly, but memory is also important for like remembering the face of your mother, just like and
Yeah.
animals have that too, some of that. But yeah, memory is just so basic, but so powerful for humans.
Yeah, it's vital. Nothing, it would be nearly impossible to accomplish even a shred of what we have as a species without
Imagine
long-term
Isaac
memory.
Newton trying to invent calculus without being able to remember what he was just thinking about a minute ago.
He wouldn't. It would not be possible. Now, while that is very true, it sets us apart from animals, I do think it is very impressive and noteworthy how migrating animals know where to go
Yeah.
and all the stops along the way, and that they're going to travel the right direction and get back to roughly the same spot. For an animal that can't hardly, well, I mean, we don't even know if they have thought of any type,
I don't
but
know if I could be wrong. I don't know how much of that is memory versus like instinct, right?
but isn't instinct some sort of non-conscious memory?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Hmm.
Maybe we need a doctor of psychology to tell us about that.
Well, if we could find one of those esteemed individuals, that'd be real fucking nice.
I don't know how esteemed they fucking are, but all right. Okay. What else do you have on this list? You just need 6, 5, 4, and 1.
They're not going to say clothing, are they?
No, but why don't we stick with memory? So what's something in that realm still? What can humans do with their brain that pretty much no other animal in all of history has been able to do?
Or like, thought process.
Close enough. Let's go with imagination.
Okay.
Imagination. What? That's not good enough for you?
No, it's good.
What number is it?
4.
What do you think is number 1?
I don't know.
It's imagination.
I haven't guessed it yet.
You might think imagination is too high to be number 1, but I think it's right to be number 1, and it's because, well, I'll tell you. I'll read this thing. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be the wealthiest person in the world, or the smartest, fastest, strongest? In fact, if you've ever wondered, period, about anything, then you've been subjected to imagination. Without it, humanity would be reduced to nothing but a bunch of belly scratchers. It's the words of this
I take
article.
offense to that.
Aristotle, in his work De Anima, identified imagination as a faculty that enables an image to occur within us. Buster, I know you've had a lot of things occur within you, but have you ever had imagination occur within you?
No. I'm still waiting for that first spark of imagination.
Yeah. And without imagination, we would not have language, mathematics, or anything else on this list. No one would have invented anything, really, that wasn't instinctual. Primates, monkeys, apes, gorillas, they're not inventing things. They use tools sometimes, but they're not, you know what I mean? It's like imagination drives pretty much everything else. Imagination is the ability to take a vague, amorphous concept and transform it into a tangible reality. It's something we have in all of us, well, besides Buster, waiting eagerly to be used to its fullest. That's imagination at number 1.
It's your only capacity to create something that isn't already in existence, because first, to have a goal and to get there and to make it a reality, you've got to have conceived of it first.
Yeah. Well said, bub.
The proof? It's in the pudding.
Brew. You son of a bitch, you got me. Buster, back on episode 265, you brought me a list to guess. And that
Yeah?
thing that I guessed is on this list. We're not talking about pet costumes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have anything to do with like long-term pair bonding or human relationships, is it?
No. None of that hippie shit. What is essential for humans to have made it this long and not died off?
Medications? Medicine.
What other animals have medicine? Well, I know humans have invented medicines for animals. But aside from that, what other animals have medication to heal them?
They don't.
Their
Stupid
ailments? They
squirrel.
don't, bub. Fucking idiot animals. So what number is medicine in the top 10?
4.
You got it. Number 4.
Oh.
Everything from blood pressure pills to eyeglasses can be considered forms of medicine. Frequently, people forget the applications it has on us and other organisms. That's right. I mean, imagine taking for granted just like your allergy medication, you know? Like,
yeah.
But then there's also stuff that's life or death, like blood pressure medication, or, you know, stuff that treats cancer. Earliest known medical texts in the world were found in the ancient Syrian city of Ebla and date back to 2500 BCE. The art of medicine has advanced by leaps and bounds since that time. From the archaic belief of the four humors to the discovery of the smallpox vaccine, medicine has always been utilized for the outward benefit of humanity. Unless you are Bill Gates putting microchips in our COVID vaccine, of course.
I was going to say, and now a fair amount of human society thinks that they know better and actually turn the clock back hundreds, if not thousands of years by refusing modern medicine because they think they have the natural cure or
No, they don't have
right
the natural
thought
cure.
process.
They have the Lord himself watching over them. God's will, Buster. Are you fucking sinner? Jesus.
Forgive me, Jesus.
Well,
Forgive me, Jesus.
For more on medication, that episode I mentioned, 265, that's where I guessed the top 10 most common over-the-counter medications. So you should listen to that. All right, you just need 6 and 5. I'm surprised you haven't said 5 yet. It is uniquely human. No other animal does this or has ever done this. And much like medication, it has allowed us to prosper. I think there's a theory that it's allowed our brains to grow, evolve into their current size.
Fire.
No.
Oh.
I thought you were going to say fucking. And I was like, no, Buster, lots of animals do that.
You haven't heard the historical hypothesis that humans' ability to cook food, they think, is one of the reasons why.
That's what I'm saying. Cooking.
Oh, but that has to occur because
I guess fire is related. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. But it's preparing food with heat or fire. So I guess you were mostly there. That's an activity unique to humans.
Sure.
It's number 5.
That belongs here.
Cooking fires have been around for a large chunk of humanity, and they extend as far back as 250,000 years. And in the 17th and 18th century, food was a classic marker of identity in Europe. And in the 19th century, age of nationalism, cuisine became a defining symbol of national identity. The Industrial Revolution brought mass production, mass marketing, and standardization of food. We're so blessed. Factories processed, preserved, canned, and packaged a wide variety of foods. I mean, I shouldn't say that because yes, there's a negative connotation to factories processing foods, but for the things like canning and, you know, there's a lot of... Go ahead.
It keeps your ass doing the job that you like to do instead of spending 10 months of the year being a self-sustaining farmer on your own land.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you can say the negative connotations of today, like overproduction of food. We're almost trying to move backwards at this point, right? Because food has gone too far in the process at all. But it cannot be denied that it was super important for the development of humans. In the 1920s, freezing methods and cafeterias and fast food restaurants emerged. Isn't that crazy that freezing has only been around for 100 years? Wild, right?
Yeah, man. And when people first had freezers in their home, ice blocks had to be delivered around town to keep people's shit cold.
Yeah.
We have come so far in such a short amount of time these last 150 years. It is nothing short of impressive.
Our great-grandparents, or some of you listening, your grandparents, or maybe even your parents, if you're a fucking old ass, knew a world before freezers, or before modern freezers at least. And now there's whole industries based. Think of the frozen chicken nugget aisle at the grocery store. They depend on you having a freezer in your home. But in our contemporary area, cooking companies not only placing a slab of food over an open fire, but also boiling, steaming, frying, baking, and virtually any other process that prepares food with the application of heat. Cooking allows us to take a once bacteria-laden piece of meat and rid it all of its toxins. And over the years, we have become accustomed to the taste and texture of cooked foods and could not imagine eating said foods in their raw states. Can you imagine? Unless
you'd like to go out for a night of some sushi.
And I don't. But, I read a book recently about a guy on a deserted island, and he couldn't make fire. So he had to throw a rock at a bird, kill the bird, and then eat the bird raw. And I was thinking, like, how many days on that island would I go before I did that? Eventually you would eat a raw bird.
Yeah.
But it would take a lot. But when you're starving, what you think you won't do changes pretty quick.
Was that like a nonfiction?
No, it was actually a Stephen King short story.
Oh,
Survivor type, which is very good. All right. So you just have one left, Buster. And this one is weird. I actually this doesn't belong in the top 10. It's out of place compared to everything else we've taken, we've talked about. It is something for sure we take for granted, but it is not something that separates us from the animal.
Because there are several animals that come to mind that do this?
Every animal has this. Every human has this, but takes it for granted. If people like you and I are inside all day, working, podcasting, whatever,
chitting,
what might you want to do at the end of the day?
Go to sleep.
Okay, before that, like, I need to get out of this house. I need to go outside. I need to get in nature for a little bit.
Sure.
I need to unplug. Nature is number 6.
Again, fuck?
I know, I agree. Every animal has nature, lives in nature, but animals don't have the mental capacity to take it for granted in the way humans do.
Okay, sure.
Civilization has taken a turn from its grassroots heritage and has spawned into the amalgamation of metropolises. Metropolises, fuck. It's kind of a word salad
Band
there.
name
We live in today. Most people have displaced themselves from the natural world in favor of a more urbanized one. And although the city life does contain many positive aspects, like allowing people to connect with a cohesive network, it is not devoid of caveats. For example, people in general have become increasingly desensitized toward the world beyond their microcosms. As pollution begins to perpetuate through our forests and oceans, entire ecosystems could become ravaged and disfigured. The best thing to do to appreciate what we have is to get out there and realize that we are a part of nature and not apart from it. So I agree, nature's kind of out of place with the rest of the list, but fuck, man, I'm just reporting the news here. Don't get mad at the middleman.
But if they're trying to make a point of the top 10 things that humans take for granted, then I think it belongs on the list.
Yeah, this list I started the research for this list looking for the top 10 things humans take for granted. I landed on this list of the top 10 things we take for granted that separate us from the animals.
Yeah.
So it kind of turned into a hybrid list.
Yeah, it does separate us from the animals because animals don't take that. They're not capable of taking it for granted, but we certainly do. As a person who can get very jazzed up and angry about the way humans mistreat the planet and natural resources and other animals, I agree. It belongs here. If not, it should be higher.
I disagree. I am for the full destruction and dismemberment of all aspects
rape
of
of
nature.
The natural world.
Hey, they had their shot. We had our shot. Let's just burn it all down now. Let's go back through the top 10. Number 10, the 10th thing most take for granted as it separates us from the animals. Number 10 is bipedalism, the ability to walk on twos. Number 9 is fine motor skills or dexterity. Number 8 is mathematics, which I agree with you is kind of specific. Number 7 is language, which allowed us to do that. We couldn't do this podcast today without language, Buster.
And are we better or worse for that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Jury's out.
The language is also allowing me to say, fuck you, Buster. Fuck you, Buster. You're a son of a bitch, asshole, son of a bitch, and motherfucker. I couldn't have done that without language.
Well,
Number 6 is nature. Number 5 is cooking. Number 4 is medicine. Number 3 is power. Number 2 is memory. And number 1 is imagination. What do you think, Buster? What do you think of the list?
I'm going to imagine you did a good job of hosting this episode. And I'm going to have to try awfully hard.
Yeah. I don't think I have the imaginative capacity for something that big.
I think it's an interesting list. I think it's well timed. And I do think that whatever Thanksgiving means to you, if it might mean unfortunate, obligatory time with people that you happen to be related to that you don't enjoy.
I can relate to that right now.
It can do is be a reminder that just because you have it doesn't mean A, that you deserve it, or B, that it's a given. And building any sort of gratitude in one's daily life is huge, and whatever inroad you can take to become a more thankful, grateful individual who doesn't take these types of things for granted, I think the better.
Huh?
That's just your boy's hot take.
I missed it all. Can you say it all again? I was too busy appreciating nature while you were talking. I was looking out my window. Okay, well, as Buster said, this is timely, and it's because here in the States, Thanksgiving is coming up, and next week on episode 285, I will have a specifically Thanksgiving-themed episode planned with Daniel Zaffron, who's been on a few times in the past. You do not want to miss it, and if you want to listen to it early and with 0 ads, you should sign up for TennisPod Plus. Again, you can get a free 7-day trial at tennispod.com/plus or in the Apple Podcasts app. If you haven't already, please leave a comment and take the poll on Spotify if you're listening to me on Spotify. Buster, the thing I'm most thankful for and I'll never take for granted again is being able to end an episode with you. So thank you. This is the best part of this episode, is ending it.
Amen.
Amen. Appreciate everyone listening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.